Tim.
Yes.
What's your topic?
My topic is music recommendations. We've talked about music many times on the show, but usually in a more roundabout way, or something else will be the topic, and then we bring up music as an example. You know, like we didn't do this today, but we were talking about like what would you be buried with? We'd bring up the I'd be buried with this album because I love it. Or we've done topics that are like, what's your favorite album of all time or whatever? Like what music defines the 90s to you? This is different because a lot of people have been tweeting at me or like on the Facebook group and stuff. And they're like, hey, like what music do you recommend listening to? Like Kind of Funny should make a Spotify playlist or this or that.
Oh, that'd be fun.
I don't use Spotify, so I don't really do that, but I will help Nick make one.
I would love that. So my thing is I don't know, like you two are the ones that know a lot about music. Although Greg, oddly enough, can sing the lyrics to any fucking song anytime it's on the radio, which
is
like
you're giving Greg way too much
shit.
credit. I'm sorry, you're giving Greg way too much credit on this one.
It's been one for one, like 100% of the time. I'm like, I'll put a random 80s song on, and he will just know every lyric to it. And I don't know, you guys know me. You've heard me try to sing songs. I don't know the lyrics to anything. I will make shit up. I use the word stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I left some stuff in the city. I'm doing some stuff and it's shitty. That's what I do. That's the way we got.
I left some stuff in the city.
But Greg will just be like, Greg just busts that stuff out. But I would say, music knowledge aside, you two probably represent more of a polar spectrum in the music knowledge. Like you like the indie sort of like rap hip hop scene.
Yeah.
Colin knows that, but Colin also has just a vast knowledge of anything from probably, I would say, 81 on. Is that a fair assumption?
I would say 81 to 2005. Maybe like the late 70s to 2005.
Yeah.
My knowledge of today's music is...
I'm often shocked at how much all of you know about just random types of music, or just random bands and just artists and stuff, and just how deep your knowledge is of their library. Like not just the hits, but like the deep cuts of the albums and stuff. I'm like, what the hell? Like you with the lyrics, I don't understand.
Like
you
Weezer,
get upset.
like
you
Greg
say that we
Weezer.
give Greg too much credit. I don't think so. I think we give Greg the credit for knowing the lyrics and knowing the general melody. You get upset because Greg doesn't like sticking to the song. So
Yeah, Greg doesn't understand time
he just takes
signatures.
the fun parts of the song.
He skips
kinda-
Like Greg and I will start
together.
singing a song, and it's like, and then Greg will just skip the
Right to the hook.
just like
Right to
I'm
the
like,
hook
what do you
every
like?
time.
How am I? First of all, how am I supposed to know that? Like how am I
You're always
supposed to know
saying,
that?
I thought we were just having a jam session.
But
For the
that's not
record,
how you have a jam session,
When I'm
Greg.
singing something off of the radio, I stick to
You
what I
stick
need
to the-
'cause
yeah.
I'm trying to fill it in there.
Mhm. So I think that's what upsets you about it. But I mean, are you not impressed by this man's knowledge
The
of
big
lyrics?
thing is, I think for radio stuff and what you go and put on the Spotify when we're in the car, and I know the lyrics to, that's all general pop culture. Colin's not impressed because when he's on the elliptical, he'll put on Zebrahead and go, "Do you remember this song?" I'm like, "No."
Okay,
Well, that's actually not it at all. I was just saying that I agree with you that you know the melody, but you don't. I find that you're making lyrics up a lot. You don't think you're making them up.
Okay.
We've had those kinds of conversations. He does know the melody. He does.
Well,
He
but
has the
even with
K-Rock
lyrics,
knowledge
though,
base.
It's like even with like rap songs, which is the thing that I wouldn't give Greg the like, oh, he would know this. But it's like you give a random like old Snoop Dogg song and Greg will just fucking do the whole verse. And I'm like,
we were walking to TwitchCon.
yeah, and he just
I was like,
busts into shit.
I think I was like singing, it was either Gin and Juice or something from the Chronic, and I was like, you know how sometimes I'm in my own little world, but like, give me the microphone first so I can bust like a bubble. And Greg's
Compton
like,
and Long Beach together. Now you know we in trouble.
yeah, ain't nothing but a G thing, baby.
Too
Well, I'm not.
loked out. Greggy's going
There we go.
crazy.
He'll
That
yeah,
row
he'll
is a
have
label
remixes.
that pays me
unfadable, so please don't try to fade. Now back to
See, it's like,
This is it.
it's
It's,
just
this,
shit like
it's
that.
that. What you guys
I can only
just
go so
did
far.
was fine. But then Greg goes even farther.
But he'll do that. He'll do that with like a weird, like I'll be like flipping through stations. This never happens, but this is just an example I'm making up.
No,
right
because
now
when we
to
get in your
illuminate.
car, I'm like, "Hey, put on some music," and you're like, "Okay," and it's just the AM static of where you're.
Well, I asked you to put on music last time, and you put on a quiet song from MGS, and it was like this.
and then
It was just this dull rumble, and then
Nick quickly was like, "All right, Colin, you put on music."
I'm like, Colin, you're up, and Colin's like, yeah, well, you should have come to me first. He gave me that look like, is this gonna happen again, or are you gonna come to Colin first, Papa Colin first?
Colin just busts out the fucking Pet Shop Boys. Like, what the
That
fuck's
was
going
awesome.
on?
That was awesome.
I got a great
but that's one of the things I like about hanging out with you guys. Like Greg will be if a country music song comes up, I'm like, oh, this is Garth Brooks, and you're like, no, it's not Garth Brooks. It's so and so Who Daddy from Tennessee, and I'm like, how the fuck do you?
So and so Who Daddy is criminally underrated in the country.
It blew me away that you were actually like, I like country. I was like, he's just kidding. For like 4 years, I knew you. I thought you were kidding.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I
There
was
was
I started
somebody-
riding in cars with you.
Somebody
and I was
thought
like,
that
he's
the
not
Taylor
kidding.
Swift thing was a giant joke too.
I thought it was.
Years. They sat me down like.
I still think it kind
Sat
of
me
is.
down.
I thought
still think it
your relationship with Taylor Swift was kind of like our joking relationship with how much we trump up Fast and Furious.
You
where
know,
we
you
like
don't
it.
jokingly trump it up. You guys don't jokingly trump it up.
It's fair
He's
enough.
been with us long enough. He
fair
knows
enough, I
this
guess.
love is real. But okay, so going back to it, like I think about this a lot because I definitely pride myself on one of my passions being the music that I enjoy. And I feel like I'm very knowledgeable about it. Having said that, it's like I feel like I only really know very specific things and I don't know anything outside of that. So it always shocks me when you guys seem so well equipped with this knowledge of like late 80s music, 90s music, all this stuff. Like there's certain things it's like if I hear the song, I'm like, oh yeah, like I remember hearing that. Or like I guess for me it was more the 2000s era because that's when I was in middle school and high school. So it's like all the shit music that came out then that I will always love from the bottom of my heart. And like Lean Back by the Terror Squad. You got to give a shout out to that, you know? And like T.I., like all the rappers of that era. Jaquan and all of them. And all these things that are just like, this isn't good. But it's like, it brings me back to a time.
That was the time.
And I think that a lot of the songs that you guys listen to that I'm like, I know who this is. All right, I know the song, but I have no idea who it is. And you guys know every fucking lyric. It's just, it's impressive to me how much you guys know. And I feel like you're all from very different backgrounds and different places.
Yeah, but I think we all are close enough in age that we experienced at least particularly like the mid 80s to early 90s at a time when we all were cognizant of what was happening, right? Like when I went and saw Straight Outta Compton, I was like, oh, now I haven't studied NWA by any stretch of the imagination, but I remember that time period. I remember them getting arrested. I remember obviously the riots after the Rodney King beating and that verdict was given. And so those to me were, to use a Colin phrase, touchstones to that time period of like when I was growing up in Riverside, watching the news and being like, that's happening in LA, which is only 45, maybe an hour away from where I'm currently sitting right now, and having the world go from being really, really big to me all of a sudden to being like, wow, this is a very small place actually, because this could be this could be happening in my town for all I know. But yeah, I mean, I get most of my knowledge from you guys, right? And like that's why I love talking to Colin whenever he puts on a band, because we're having a conversation with someone on one of the hangouts, one of the Patreon hangouts, and we were talking about Green Day. And I was like, oh, Dookie, hands down, like the best album. And Colin's like, no, it's this. And then he, I forget what his name was. It was a Josh? No. He was like, no, it's this other album that's really obscure. And then Colin and him had an obscure album off where they were like, no, this is.
Well, because he said Warning was his favorite Green Day album, and that is literally the Warning sucks. And that is and that's literally no offense.
Xavier?
Warning is awful. That was like considered like the downfall of Green Day, which was why when they came out with American Idiot 4 years later, everyone's like, all right, this is American Idiot is not a fantastic album, but it's a good album. And it's a concept album, which I like, and it's different because they don't do concept albums. I like concept albums. We can talk about that.
I believe it was James.
Was it James?
But I was busting his balls because I'm like, I've never heard that. Like when I got Warning in 2000, I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. You know, like because you have to understand Green Day, Kerplunk is and of course like 10,000 whatever Smooth Out Slappy Hours, like their independent release. That's an interesting album. But Kerplunk's a great album. Dookie is the one that in 94, the seminal record.
Right.
Insomniac is a good record, but I think that it was very rushed. I mean, they made that album like really quickly. But Nimrod is the one we were talking about. And Nimrod, which came out in 97, I think is their best album. That is a fucking killer album. And
I got to go back and
as a 311 fan, I call it the Transistor of Green Day's catalog. Transistor is this really... Transistor is the album that came out after the Blue Album, which was their really popular album with Down and All Mixed Up and stuff like that. And it's like a concept album, and it's weird, and it's long, and it's spacey, and it's for fans.
Right.
Yeah. It's not really for like consumption generally. Now there are songs. Nice Guys Finished Last. Good Riddance is a very popular song. I mean, that was in the last episode of Green Day, but and that's on those records. But I like the deep cuts because. You know, I like exploring. When I find a band I like exploring their catalog.
Sure.
And
discography they call it.
Like 311 has 11 albums and a bunch of EPs and all sorts of stuff. And I know every one of those songs. Every one of them. Lyrically, I know the ins and outs of all. I can't play most of them, but on guitar bass, but I know how the guitar and bass, like you get to know something so intricately. The thing is that my love of 311 is a legacy thing at this point. I don't know that I'd recommend people today just like start listening to 311.
I would though.
They're great. They're great
because it's that sound, and that's the thing. When I hear 311, it's that sound of an era that was. I mean, it's so fucking like poignant in my brain at the time, right?
It was a seminal moment in our lives.
It really was, and it was a very big distinctive, like to me, a break with the reality of what the 80s were to me. Where the 80s were like all pop and glamour and glitter, and then you get into the 90s and you've got that sound of like that 311 or the Sublimes, or punk starts to get bigger, ska starts to get a little bit bigger.
Ska was huge.
And that was what I think you're responding to, which was we were listening to No Doubt, or Colin, not No Doubt, the original version of
It's My Life.
It's My Life.
Oh,
And you were
by
like,
Talk Talk?
Yeah, and you were like, oh, someone remade this. And I was like, no.
Well, I didn't say that. I mean, I knew that.
You made a joke about
Yeah,
it.
as
you were-
soon
you
as
were joking around about it.
I hadn't heard the other version before,
Right.
and that's just because I'm young. Like that's really it.
Oh, no,
it's
I'm not-
funny because people will be like, oh, you're stupid. You don't fucking know. It's like I don't fucking know it.
Oh,
Like,
no, but
the
that's-
first
but-
time I heard it was No Doubt.
But that's a realization that I have all the time with movies where I'm like, oh, that movie was really great. And my wife would be like, that was a book, right? Like every good movie is a book.
Yeah.
It's the same with songs. A lot of really popular, well, not a lot of really popular songs, but a lot of a good entry into the market for a lot of these bands is to pick a popular song and then do an awesome cover of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
covers
No Doubt
and,
did that all the time.
and covers could be better. I mean, I always talk about. I'm a huge Tears for Fears fan. It's like actually one of my very favorite bands. Which I guess shows like my affinity for the 80s, where I love Tears for Fears. Songs from the Big Chair is a fucking, oh my God, what a great record. But Mad World is the remake of Mad World is better, I think, than like the Gears of War commercial of Mad
Sure,
World. I think it's
sure.
actually a better song than the original Mad
thought
World.
you
So
were
I don't often
I think you said they remake it Shout. I was like,
Oh.
that was not better.
oh Shout 2000 by Disturbed.
Yeah.
No, that's certainly not better. But I'm also I discover things all the time. I'm a big fan. I know this is funny, but Rod Stewart's Some Guys Have All the Luck. I love that song. I think it's a fucking awesome song. It's like a fusion of like Rod Stewart's
Stewart.
like, yeah, like because it's a fusion
Watch
of
your tongue.
it's a fusion of Rod Stewart's like 70s rock sound and like like with like new wave sensibilities. And I always loved that song, and I was like reading about it, and it's a cover. And I was like,
Really?
and I'm like, I didn't know fucking idea. So it's not like
Yeah.
my parents
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
know that. So I accept that you didn't know that Talk Talk wrote It's My Life.
No,
But-
I had no idea it was a band called Talk Talk. I've never heard of that band. I'm sure I've heard their music before, but that's where I come in, where I'm like, who did that song? Like the other day I was listening to a song that I've heard millions of times that I probably know the lyrics to, and I was like, who did that? Well, I was like, it's the Bengals. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm not going to remember that. Not going to remember it.
But
You
to-
just remembered it.
I don't remember the song, though.
Ah,
I can't remember
fair
what it was.
enough. But to my point about like 311, like I and some of our favorite bands, I don't know if you guys agree with like some, like I just have a real affinity for them. But when I think about bands that I'd recommend that I really love, like there's a few, like I think Dredge is probably the band that I like that actually is the best band. that I
Really?
like in terms of
What song would I know from Dread?
I was playing them when you were here yesterday. They're you probably wouldn't know any of their songs. They're San Francisco based. Actually, they're really in the Valley. They've been together for 17 or 18 years. Same lineup. They only have
LA
like
Valley or Silicon Valley?
Silicon Valley.
Oh, okay.
And they came up with like Deftones and a bunch of other bands, but they're not like that. They're like a space rock, or like art rock, alt rock kind of band, and they write concept albums. And that's what I was saying before. I fucking love concept albums, and bands that do it right, like Ben Folds Five's last record before they broke up, and then they're back together now. But the unauthorized biography of Reinhold Messner, which is an album that a lot of people don't like because it's not as catchy piano rocky as Whatever and Ever Amen or Ben Folds Five's self-titled album. Reinhold Messner is a concept album, and I like how the songs merge into each other, and I like in an era where that's not from this era, but that's 15 years old now, but in an era where it's about singles or a few songs, it's not, or maybe about a B-side every now and then, but it's not about like albums and these track order and stuff like that. I like that Dredge writes in such a way that the songs go in and out of each other. Like the end of the song is at the beginning of every track, which I love. They do these things, especially in El Cielo, which is arguably my favorite record of all time, where randomly they do these things called brush strokes, where they'll randomly just start playing a song from earlier in the album or later in the album that hasn't happened yet, and they'll play it for like 15 or 20 seconds, and then it'll stop.
Kanye
and stuff.
does that.
And I love that kind of shit because it's cerebral, and music, I think there's different levels of enjoying music, but as a musician and someone that the reason I know music, it's not because I have an innate talent, it's because my family is really obsessed with music and like really, really into it. That's the reason I know old hip hop. That's the reason I know new wave. The first album I ever remember listening to was when my parents brought a Crown Victoria Ford in like 1987 or something like that. And my dad popped in the cassette tape to test the cassette when we were going home or whatever of Days of Future Past or whatever, the Moody Blues album. And I was like that. And I'm like, I have a deep lineage with a lot of these bands that I really love. Not because it was like, oh, I just love music, mom and dad, and let's play music. It's because like my parents were like, listen to this. My sisters were like, I'd sneaking in their room at night or whatever when they were after I was supposed to be in bed and they were doing homework. We would listen to whatever it was we were listening to, Tears for Fears or Depeche Mode or whatever. That's how I got into Bare Naked Ladies, Juliana Hatfield, 10,000 Maniacs, like a lot of Heart, all this like weird shit. That's why I know these bands. So it's not like anyone can do it. It was just that I was exposed to it. And if I do have children, I'm going to do the same to them because I think it was really valuable. My parents let me play instruments. They encouraged me to do it. They let me fuck around with whatever I wanted. They let me listen to whatever I want. I told the story of when I brought the Blue album home by 311. I had never heard anything except for Down by them. I brought it home. My dad always looked at my albums, and I remember being scared because it had the parental guidance thing on the front, and I was 10 or 11, and I remember one of their songs called "Guns Are for Pussies" on the back of it, and I was afraid. He just looked at it and he clearly read it. And he's like, all right, whatever, and like, so they never stopped me from doing anything. Like, that's the only reason I know it. So I don't think it's like, I just get it. I think I was just exposed to it. And I'm happy I was because I fucking love music. I listen to music for hours every day. Just like when I get up in the morning, I just lay in my bed and listen to music before I even like leave the room. So
it's funny you mentioned how you were exposed to it, because now thinking back, a lot of the bands I liked, at least earlier on, and the ones that still stuck with me, because I don't go as deep into music as you guys do, obviously. But I do remember very distinctly when my brother got his first car, he did the thing where he bought the Alpine stereo, like CD player, where the face like flipped out and you could like take it off. You could take it off with you and like you put it in your pocket to bring in your car so no one could steal it, right? And then he bought the freaking like, he was like, how big is my trunk? Cool. I'm going to figure out the biggest fucking subwoofer I can put back in there for God knows what reason, but that's what they do.
Sub.
He's
Like,
all about that bass.
But he used to listen, we like Blair, and one of the bands I think he introduced me to, which is still today, is Rage Against the Machine, and I always talk about them because it is that moment where I was listening to like, now I'm spacing on the album, I think Battle for Los Angeles, and he would just fucking
what was the year
that? God, I want to say like when he graduated, so maybe 94, 95.
No, so it was their self-titled album then.
Was it? Yeah, was it?
Self-titled's 92, Evil Empire 96,
Maybe Evil
Battle
Empire
of Los Angeles
because
was
it has
99.
it has the guy on the front of it.
Like the yellow
white.
album with the red
yeah.
star. That's Evil. That's Evil
but yeah,
Empire.
just moments like that, and then of course he would always go down the catalog. He was really into Metallica, so he had every Metallica CD. And remember those big books that you'd have to carry your CDs in?
oh yeah,
like
I got one out there.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. So he had that, and he introduced me to Metallica, which I never really got into, truth be told. But then like bands like Guns N' Roses, bands like his music catalog was my re-entry into the 80s, where I was like, I never really paid attention to the 80s and early 90s, and all of a sudden my brother gets an album called was it Teen Spirit? No, what was Nirvana's first album? Was it Teen Spirit?
Oh, never mind.
Never mind.
That's not their first one, but that's the one that.
The one with the baby floating in the.
Yeah, that's.
And I was like, "What the fuck is this? What is this cover of this?
What is this child porn?
Such an amazing album cover.
Yeah, and he would play these things, and his friends would bring then CDs into his car and things like that, and so like you're getting exposure to Pearl Jam, you're getting exposure to like Soundgarden, and like my brother was really into drumming as well, and so anything that had a great drum, like that's how I learned. That's how I listened to Rush for the first time, and he was like, "This guy is the shit. Like he's the best drummer on the planet." And I was like, "All right, I'll take your word for it because I don't give a shit about drumming." At the time, I didn't. But I
then you fell in love.
So yeah, it's interesting how that, because I didn't grow up in a household that particularly played music, and so my dad liked bands like groups like the Beach Boys and the Beatles a little bit here and there.
Beach Boys,
but,
man, Pet Sounds. Holy shit, that fucking record is good.
Yeah,
oh my god.
So recommendations for me are the bands that I always come back to. Right, it's those bands where I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't listened to Led Zeppelin in a while, so I'm gonna listen to Led Zeppelin, or I haven't listened to Guns N' Roses in a while. And I know those are like kind of the easy gets, but they really are the bands that were either the front runners or they were doing something fucking amazing back in the day.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, those are. I can't tell you how good Pet Sounds is, by the way. If people haven't listened to, like, that's one of the great rock albums of all time. Pet Sounds is Pet Sounds was so influential on the Beatles. I mean, that tells you like how. Well,
have you seen the movie about him?
About
Brian Wilson?
Brian Wilson?
No,
not Brian Wilson. Is it Brian Wilson?
From the Beach Boys?
Beach Boys, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep getting him confused with a newscaster, Brian Williams.
Brian Williams.
Liar.
Wilson. Yeah, Brian Wilson is
not smart.
Beach Boys.
But anyway, it's a movie with him, and John Cusack plays the old Brian Wilson. It's supposed to be. I haven't seen it yet either. We should watch it together because my wife said it's phenomenal, and she said it'll give you such an amazing. If you appreciate Beach Boys now, it'll give you even a deeper appreciation for what he went through and how that music came about, because he had some very serious psychological issues that were very, very mistreated for a long time. So it's pretty fascinating. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think the Beach Boys are funny because I just feel like the British invasion was so. I mean, it wasn't all there were. There were a lot of random ass bands in the '60s, the Turtles and all. Like, there's just a lot of random bands, but the Beatles were so seminal. We haven't had a band like that ever again, where it like sucked the oxygen out of the room. Where like the Beach Boys did really well considering they were contemporaries of a band that sucked the oxygen out of the room.
Was the best band ever.
And yeah, I mean, want to talk about recommendations. The Beatles, like especially like the later albums, I've talked about it before, like Sgt. Pepper's Magical Mystery Tour, White Album, Abbey Road. These are fucking really, really, really good records. And that was after they stopped touring too. So they were playing shit that they couldn't even play live. Like they didn't play those songs.
That's the thing. I mean, those were more concept than the other ones, which were a little bit more single based.
Yeah, like Let It Be and all. Like these are fine. Rubber Soul. I mean, but it's just like. I really do cut off. I have a cutoff with the Beatles of like 66 or 67 is like when I feel like they were really, really good. You know, like before that, it's very poppy, generic rock where they were trying to figure it out. And you had like the Yardbirds and all these random ass bands doing their things. Elvis was out and like people were feeling the groove or whatever and figuring rock out. I mean, we forget rock was when the Beatles were making rock was like 10 years old. You know, it wasn't like anyone knew what the fuck it was supposed to be. Rock has never gone away since. But I love those records, man. If people haven't listened to the Beatles, they're hard to get their hands on because they're not streaming anywhere. And
that's
stuff
the unfortunate aspect. You can't get them on Spotify, right? I don't know.
No,
if
Apple Music
Apple
is
streaming.
Apple Music, and Apple Music
though.
being the holder of not Apple the computer company, but Apple Music their label, are they're nuts. They're nut jobs. So,
it's too bad. But it does speak to the relevancy of that group and how great they were and how impactful they are. That the Beatles are still touted as one of the best, if not the best group of musicians ever. And you can't even, if right now it would be hard for me to even find a Beatles song unless I went on and purchased one.
Yeah, you have to buy
not
them.
hard. That's
No, but I mean,
not hard.
But what I'm saying is
inconvenient.
contrasted to how other people, like how most people consume music these days, which is through these music services like Spotify and Apple Music. Where
and I don't think that's true. I think most people are buying them from
it's possible.
these services.
It's possible. But I mean, it's definitely going. That's definitely the direction it's going in, right? Where people are buying less and less physical media and or media in general, and they're just subscribing to these things, thus making it every band a little less relevant than I think it would be if you had to put that money toward it. But the Beatles are just going to be considered one of the greatest bands ever for forever.
Yeah,
for as long as we have ears.
Yeah, I
Greg,
agree.
What about you? Like, what do you recommend? Because
No.
like you listen to a lot of stuff. Nothing.
No.
Metal Gear
Really?
Solid.
I mean, music's the one where the famous story goes that once from at IGN, LA blasted out, hey, does anybody, was when IGN still had a music channel, hey, does anybody want to review the new Weezer, our freelance just fell through, does anybody want to review the new Weezer album? And I was away from my desk, and before I got back, there were 5 responses that all said Greg, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it totally, and like, he's all right, I'm sending it to you right now, great. I was like, great, and then I stopped, and then I turned back around and emailed it back, and I was like, hey, heads up, I only listen to Weezer, Taylor Swift, and Damon. Like, I don't know if I'm the guy for this, you know what I mean? Like, music isn't a huge thing for me. It just isn't. You know what I mean? I enjoy it. I like it. When I run into stuff now, I go out and I make an effort to buy it. You know what I mean? Because I want to. My catalog is one of those things that kind of like, I think like most people's, right? Kind of stunted after college, maybe. Like in college, I was downloading everything and have CDs. Just dozens and dozens of burned CDs out there with singles and tracks and stuff I ran into and liked. And then it was like I just listened to that forever. And then now it's so easy with iTunes that when I find something I want or like, I go out and buy it, try to support it. But yeah, like I don't consider myself an expert in the field at all. So it's one of those things where it's like, I love Weezer and I love Taylor Swift. I recommend trying them out if you like them or not. And if you don't, no big deal. I love Dynamite Hack. I think you should do that. Lucky Boys Confusion, right? Like,
I love that you love Dynamite Hack still.
Dynamite Hack and Super
Lucky Boy
Fast,
Confusion
right?
had that one good record.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I had them all of them, but yeah, they had the one good record.
With Boss Man.
Yeah.
That's so
their
crazy.
big label one. Yeah.
Like, it's so nuts to me that like music is not that big of a deal to some people. And
Yeah.
I guess it's just, it's one of those things that video games aren't to some people, movies aren't to others, but
I appreciate it, and it's not. I'm not stupid. Like if it went away tomorrow, I wouldn't miss
Yeah.
it. Like no, I love the way it'll make me feel when I'm walking and listening to it. The perfect track comes on for the perfect thing, or like I now like the Regiment for an Airplane is putting on Taylor Swift in 1989, Going to Sleep. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's all these
Super
different
fun when you're
things.
sitting next to him.
What? Me just sitting there with the hood pulled over my face?
Yeah,
and
you're like it's
rocking
hilarious.
that Taylor
You're
Swift
such
in
a
my
different
dreams.
guy when you travel too, because I think I think in your brain traveling is when you actually take a break and stop moving for
Yeah,
a
sure.
second.
You have an excuse not to work.
Yeah, so Craig, last time I think it was the only time I've sat next to you on a plane, like right directly next to you. I look over, I was like, Tim, and I like fucking with you, so that's fun. So I just keep you awake constantly by hugging you. And I look over at Greg, and he's got like an Assassin's Creed hoodie just pulled over, and just you can see the earbuds kind of coming out, and there's a Vita just on the standby here in case you
In
wake
case
up.
I
You're
wake
like,
up, if I wake up, I'll play Vita for
it's
sure.
immediately.
But I've trained myself in airplanes so much that I can't stay awake on airplanes anymore.
I don't blame you. That's great.
I
can't
just
sleep
get on, and
airplane.
as soon as I hear the engines, even if I want to play a game, I start getting sleepy.
It's probably good.
But yeah,
for
that's
you.
how I mean, like music is obviously a huge part of everything, but it's just not like something I go out of my way to appreciate or find, and that's why when I do find something I like, by hook or by crook, I try to go for it.
See, it's so interesting because to me, like, it is such an important thing, and it's something that I read about every day, and like I look into, and I'm like looking forward to releases. Like I have a mental calendar in my head of like when things are coming, and I look forward to those things. You know, whether it's music videos or new singles or finally the album coming out. And I feel like over I've spoken about this many times on the show where Napster and Kazaa and LimeWire and stuff were so seminal in my life in kind of creating who I was, and playing games like Tony Hawk and all these, or even Guitar Hero that taught me about all these different types of music. I kind of found myself there, and I was like, all right, I like this. I like this. I don't need to worry about all this other stuff. I can just focus on the things that I like. And I dug real deep into it. And then I found the core groups of artists that I like really get into and kind of vibe with and understand where they're at, whether it's I like their music or just like what they're doing and all this stuff. And somewhere down the line, so I've spoken about them many times, but so Q&5 as a music collective, which is ran by Tone Deaf. But in addition to Tone Deaf, people I don't talk about that much, like there's this guy Pac FM, there's this other dude Substantial, there's a group called Cunning Linguist. They're probably
that's a good name.
Yeah, it is. They're probably the biggest thing from Q&5. I mean, they're definitely the biggest thing from Q&5. But what's interesting about them is that they, were 20-year-old, 19-year-old dudes 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And they decided to name their group Cunning Linguist because it's funny.
Yeah.
They're Cunning Linguists and whatever. And they made music that was just kind of fun and just, like, hey, we're underground and we're cool. And like, it was just perfect. It was such a time thing. And then they made another album that was the same way. And we were all kind of like, we're growing up with it. But then all of a sudden they got older and they were like, we're going to do something different. They put out a concept album called A Piece of Strange. And when it first happened, I didn't like it at all. And I'm like, this is not the fun dick jokes and stuff that I enjoy so much. But then it took me maybe like 2 years to like really, I wouldn't give up on it because I cared about these guys so much. I was like, it must be me that's the problem. Like one day it's going to click. And all of a sudden it clicked. And I'm like,
oh, nice.
Oh, I'm older. Like I get this. I get what they're doing. They're doing something different. And then they started doing more and more and more. And then I started realizing that my music taste kind of specifically, my passion is this independent hip hop stuff. And I love a lot of mainstream hip hop artists. Like I love Eminem, Lupe Fiasco, Kanye. Like I love these guys. But I really kind of segment it into two things that when people ask me, what do I recommend? It's two very different sectors. One is, it is the fun-loving stuff, like the old school Cunning Linguist stuff that is just cool and fun to listen to. And it kind of gets you, like in a mood, right? It's like a specific time. Then the other thing is this is an investment that you're doing. And it's kind of what you were talking about. Like, you were involved in the artist's legacy, and you want to know every single song and the whole discography and how it fits together and why this album came after this one and the sounds and all this stuff. And I found that I look for artists that might not be that, but are just the more single fun, like I just like their sound. Like G-Eazy is a perfect example.
I like him.
This rapper that he's great, he's not like on this level of like super lyrical and like all this other stuff. Like he's not what you think when you think, underground rap, but it's like, it's not about that. It's like, he makes fun music.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it, and so there's him, there's this guy XV, Kyle Lucas. Like there's a group of people that I would definitely recommend you guys at least listening to, because they all have unique sounds. They're just fun. And you listen to it and you're like, I like this. This guy's having a good time, But then on the other side of that, there is the modern day Cunning Linguist, which at this point, Piece of Strange came out in 2006. We've gotten a couple albums out of them, a couple different mixtapes, and there's three members. There's No, Deacon the Villain, and Natty. No's the producer, but he also raps sometimes, and the other guys are just rappers. But over time, Deacon has started producing as well. All that information goes to show that over the last 15 years, I've really kind of dedicated myself to loving the work that these guys do and seeing them evolve and seeing all this stuff grow. And each time they put an album since 2006, it's been either a concept or a themed album. And every one has a very different sound than the last, has a different production value, it has a different goal. And there's always like their follow-up album was called Honorology, which is the study of dreams. And the whole album just told a story about dreams. And and it was amazing.
I like heady shit like
that.
And
and A Piece of Strange had this like really, really deep thing with like so many metaphors and stuff. And it's like it told a story when you listen to the album, but you could also listen to the songs individually.
There's an album called A Piece of Strange.
A Piece of Strange. Yes.
That's a great turn of phrase.
And it's great. And it's like the whole thing, it tells this story of this. It's a story about a kid that decides he's going to be a rapper to get famous and stuff. But then he meets this girl that kind of ruins it because, he falls in love and like it distracts him from stuff. But the girl's name's Mary Jane, and she is also a metaphor for marijuana, who he gets like addicted to, like that ruins his life in another way. And then her father is a racist and he's black, she's white, so it causes all these problems. And it's like all of that is told through crazy metaphors and stuff. Like it's not directly said to you. You need to like listen to it. And I've listened to that album thousands of times, like if realistically hundreds of times. And like over the years, I've gotten little bit by bit, and I'm like, oh shit, you know, like this is crazy. And recently, Deacon the Villain just released his first solo album, and he produced it himself and rapped on it and features a whole bunch of other people. And it's called Peace or Power. And it's another thing. It's like themed. It's very 70s funk, and it's fucking awesome. It came out last week. You guys should definitely check it out. And what blew me away by it, and the reason I kind of made this my topic, is the fact that I'm listening to this album and I'm like, man, this sounds totally different than anything I've heard before from them, but it has the same polish and the same energy and thought put into making a quality product, you know? And I'm like, man, they did this for the me's out there, the people that are really dedicating themselves to like wanting to enjoy this stuff, and it's enjoyable to listen to. But there's no singles, there's no like that pop thing. And that's why I have the G-Eazy's and the, you know, their old catalog and all that stuff to listen to. And it made me realize that the music that I recommend to people is the music where the artists really give a fuck about what they're making. And they're not just making stuff for the money or the whatever. It's like they're making it to make something that they totally believe in. And specifically when it comes to rappers, I think that the rappers that produce it themselves, so if they make the beat and rap over it, that shows a level of cohesion, that they have a vision for what this product's going to be. And anytime that happens, you can just tell. You can just tell that there's a magic to it and there's a thought behind it. And this is him coming into his own as a producer and a rapper and a singer. And I know I'm going on real long about this, but the last thing is, I think it's amazing because when people think rap song, they think 16 line verse chorus, 16 line verse chorus, 16 line verse chorus, done. Like rap songs all have the same setup. This, I don't think there's a single song on the album that has that format. Like every single one has different, total varied formats. And totally, like the time signatures are all weird. Like it's just very insane. So I definitely recommend Deacon the Villain, Peace or Power. Check it out.
I was gonna say before we go, because people do ask us, I guess me and you mostly, about for album recommendations and band recommendations. I can't, it's sad because I can't really recommend too much of a contemporary nature, I don't think. But grab your pen and paper, my friends out there. Because if you want a little taste of the psyche of Colin Moriarty's musical tastes, here's a few recommendations. Okay? Here's a few recommendations.
I'm writing this down in my brain.
The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, Magical Mystery Tour, The White Album, and Abbey Road. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, Momentary Lapse of Reason, The Wall, etc. You can't go wrong with Pink Floyd. You can go Tears for Fears, songs from The Big Chair. I mean, there's a lot of good Tears for Fears stuff. Missing Persons, Real Life. These are good bands to listen to if you like new wave. Stone Temple Pilots, Purple and Core, two great records, really seminal records. Green Day, Kerplunk, Dookie, Nimrod. If you really, really want to listen to 311, I would start with Grassroots or Sound System. Can't go wrong with either of those albums. Those are very true albums to their sound. Ben Folds 5, self-titled, Whatever and Ever Amen. Unauthorized biography of Reinhold Messner, really good albums. De La Soul. You can't go wrong with anything from their catalog, but Stakes is High is my favorite. De La Soul.
Me too.
A Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders is my favorite, but you can't really go wrong with most of their catalog either. Muse, Absolution's a fucking really, 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 really good record. Dredge, El Cielo is maybe my favorite record of all time, with the exception of maybe Transistor by 311. Catch Without Arms is another good Dredge record. Fair to Midland is probably the newest band I listen to, although they're not together. Both of their records are really, really good. I don't know. Those are some good places to start.
It's a good starting place.
Those are some good places to start. But I wouldn't want to necessarily just to end there. So maybe we'll get back to it at some point. But those are some good places to start. Those Stone Temple Pilot records, by the way, I haven't gone back and listened to in a while. Core and Purple, those records are fucking awesome. They're so
You were playing them the other day in the car, I think.
Oh my God. Oh, Pearl Jam too. The first two Pearl Jam records.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's it.
And Weezer's Pinkerton.
I was gonna say Weezer's Blue album and Sublime's self-titled album.
Oh,
a lot of people give 40 Ounces to Freedom a lot of credit, and I think it gets too much credit. I really do believe Sublime's self-titled
Which
album.
one had Century on it?
The self-titled album.
Yeah, that was the best.
The one that they made right when Bradley died, or that came out before, like it actually wasn't even out by the time he died. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. they're a band, and we've talked about this in the past, I think, Greg, with you and I, or maybe you and I talked about it, Nick, where I wonder, Sublime's so well remembered having released really only 2 records. Mm-hmm. And then they have like the Thief record, or whatever the fuck it's called, and like a few other things, but like they are pretty well remembered having done very little. And I often wonder.
It was like Hendrix, right? Like you look at Jimi Hendrix, and his career wasn't that long, but everyone remembers him as one of the greatest guitar players and like musicians.
Well, he had raw talent. Yeah, and I'm not saying that they didn't. They recorded live. They were very raw. But I just wonder if it's the same thing with Nirvana, frankly, but to even a greater degree, where I'm like, what would have happened to these guys had he not died? Would like anyone give a shit? Because I feel the same way about Nirvana, where I think Nirvana's great. Nevermind's a great album. In Utero, whatever the fuck that record's called, is really good. I mean, they have a good catalog, but we got Foo Fighters because of the.
Yeah, they would have broken up eventually, though. Nirvana was. You do that much heroin, you're gonna.
Self-destruct.
I know some people think it's sacrilegious to talk about Nirvana that way, but I'm curious what percentage of Sublime and Nirvana's popularity, and even Alice in Chains and other bands, where it's like, how good were they? Alice in Chains was excellent, but do we care more now because we can't ever
better
see
to
them
burn out than fade away.
Yeah. Anyway,
Tim, good topic.
Thank you.
It was sponsored by Loot Crate. Whoa. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yeah, you did. You said all this stuff.
I always know.
Would you classify yourself as a geek, gamer, or pop culture nerd? Then Loot Crate is the subscription box for you. Loot Crate is a subscription box service with more than $40 worth of geek, gamer, and pop culture gear, collectibles, apparel, comics, etc. delivered to your mailbox every month. Make sure you head to lootcrate.com/kindafunny and enter the code kindafunny to save $3 on any new subscription. This month's theme is time, and quite appropriately, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of Back to the Future, the timeless appeal of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and the timey-wimey charm of Doctor Who.
Come on, son. It's good.
Do you know a lot about Doctor Who?
I don't know a lot about Doctor Who, but I know way more than I probably should about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Sorry, I just been all over the place. Fuck yeah, dude.
I didn't know that the timey-wimey. I'm getting a lot of tweets about that it is a Doctor Who thing. Confirmed.
I now know. When I read this copy the first time ever, I understood it was a Doctor Who thing. But now, thanks to Lego Dimensions and playing through the Doctor Who level, first off, I understand the timey-wimey thing, and the Doctor Who thing seems funny. Okay. He was very funny when he was interacting with Batman. I don't know if he's like that all the time. But if he's having this caliber of conversation with Batman, I assume is it a funny guy? Is he a funny guy, Kev? You're nodding. Thanks, Kevin. Basically, Loot Crate is like a friend who knows what you love and surprises you with an awesome present every month. Did we mention they shipped over 13 different countries too? You have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive that month's crate. And when the cutoff happens, Jack, that's it. It's over. So go to lootcrate.com/kindafunny and enter the code kindafunny to save $3 on your new subscription today.
Now, there's something about this that I've been thinking about Loot Crates right up here. Why is it over 13 countries? That's a weird number, isn't it?
Over 13? Well,
like, why not just identify the number of countries?
They leave it open so that if they add more.
Well, maybe sometimes it fluctuates based on shipping and whatnot. So maybe sometimes they have 15.
Like, we shipped to 15 countries.
Yeah,
right?
Know. Well, because
if
you say over 13, every time you add a country, you don't have to go back and rewrite the copy.
And wait, does
future-proofing.
Over 13, it should be more than 13.
Yeah,
countries.
You go. Yes, yeah, but that's.
That's enough. Of that.
Okay, I didn't hear the sirens from the grammar police over here
because we all had to learn to let go. A lot of people don't want to give up. You go like over a bridge.
Yeah.
Numbers are. What'd you say? More than.
It's like every time I'm afraid to talk around you guys like being a fucking Shark Tank. But the other day I was like, Colin, how do you? I was like, is ketchup hyphenated? And you're like, well, Nick. And then you went on a diatribe about
ketchup,
like ketchup. Which is like the condiment.
Because you didn't say catch up.
Well,
I
don't enunciate enough. And then and you're like, oh, you can hyphenate it if you want. But I knew half of you was fucking with me. Like you always do. You two fuck with me. Tim fucks with me a lot too.
Yeah, but you definitely
Kevin and
said
I fuck with
ketchup.
Tim. That's the way it goes.
Which one did he say? Now I'm confused.
He was trying to say catch up. But he definitely
like
said
how do we catch up to Kevin? He's running down the street.
He's like, is it hyphenated? And then Colin's like, well, I mean, there's one way you could either do CATSUP or I was like, wait, huh?
Oh no,
what? And he got so confused.
Catch. There's not a huge difference in how you pronounce those two words.
To be fair, there's not, and especially when you're just saying.
It's not like I was like, how do you spell popcorn? And he told me how to spell fucking jujubes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure I said ketchup.
FUCKIN space jujubes.
Well, because I think catch up. No one ever really says let's catch up. They say. I think that it sounds more like catch up when you're just speaking.
Let's catch up. Okay.
All right.
Okay, I'm with you.
So I don't blame Nick, but oh man, seeing him get confused about the cat stuff.
Colin, he broke me. He broke me on that one because I can never tell if Colin's fucking with me or not. You guys are a lot smarter than I am, so I have to I have to kind of be on my toes every once in a while. I often feel like the old person who is slightly sliding into dementia when I'm around you guys. Where I'm like, have we talked about this already?
I know that you want to get to the next topic, Greg.
Yeah.
But real quick, I need something clarified for me.
Sure.
What was the deal a couple days ago of you leaving the sink on?
Oh, I just totally. You know what it was? I turned both knobs to get the water like I'll
the
usually
right
start with
temperature.
hot and then I lather
yourself.
up and then I'm like shit that's too hot and I turned the cold on but just a little bit, but I left the fan on. And so when I went to turn the hot off, because that was the thing in my mind that I turned on, I just didn't look, and it was the same harmonic resonance as the fan, so I couldn't hear that it was still on.
The same harmonic resonance
As the fan. Anyway, it sounded like the fan, so I
Yeah.
just got confused. It was definitely on, but
Then
it
you
was on a
come out,
lot.
and then
It was like a waterfall.
Kevin's like, Nick is old. Nick is like losing it. He's just leaving the sink
Look,
on.
I've been wanting to talk to you guys about my wardrobe. I'd like to just wear a muumuu the entire time and some house slippers. Is that possible? Can I leave
we'd be
house
fine.
slippers here?
Yeah, I wish.
Can I really?
Yeah, we have house slippers here.
If I get a
100%.
pair for you guys, do you want house slippers?
Sure, let's all get some house slippers. Let's get monogrammed ones with the kind of funny logo and our names and stuff.
That would be That'd be fucking awesome. You're
If
talking.
you run a house slipper emporium, please hit us up. Just
I
go
do
to
run a house slipper
kindoffunny.com/forum.
Phone over right now to email you.
Good. Yes, please do. Please do.